Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one yet again based on one of your new suggestions. This one having to do with a mysterious creature that's found up in the northern parts of Canada. This is a strange creature because it could be a variation of several different items all at once. Like for starters, it could be another version of a Bigfoot, or it could be a strange version of a gorilla. More on that here in a minute. Or it could be misinterpreted as, let's say, a wild man. And even then, it could be, as several people have noted on research, it could be something along the lines of a bear. So much to talk about when it comes to this mysterious creature. Has a very unique name too. It's known as the Traverspine Gorilla. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating info associated with this creature, and then also apparently it has a link to some potential Inuit type lore. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating info here. So what is this Traverspine Gorilla? Well, as I mentioned a minute ago, it's a creature that is found up in the northern parts of Canada. In fact, if you wanted to go to even more specific areas, you would have to go towards a place called the Torngat Mountain Range. Some of you that live up there in the north may know exactly where this is. And then if you wanted to go to another area, you could go to a place called the Happy Valley-Goose Bay. And then also there's a settlement somewhere around there that's called Traverspine, hence the name associated with this creature. But yes, this is a creature that has apparently been around for a very, very long time. In fact, when I mentioned the word Inuit, it seems like there was a time period where up there in the north, you had like a battle of sorts. You had the Inuit that were hunting down and actively targeting a race of creatures that they called the Tunijuk. I hope I'm saying that correctly, Tunijuk. These were a race of primitive giants, like giant man-like creatures that happened to be living there in that same northern area, but they didn't live with the Inuits. In fact, they didn't even live in tents or igloos altogether. Instead, they lived in these circular stone pit houses, and apparently they all went at war with each other. And so eventually they decided to move to another place. They were getting outnumbered by the Inuit. They were getting slaughtered. And so when that happened, they moved to the aforementioned areas that I was mentioning, like with regards to the Torngat Mountain Range, and then also the areas involving the Happy Valley-Goose Bay, and that's where they're located to this day. Now let's talk about first about the physical characteristics of these creatures. The reason why they could be misinterpreted as, I don't know, a weird version of a gorilla is because essentially it looks like a larger version of a gorilla. Imagine something that is 7 feet tall, extremely powerful as well. I mean, the people that apparently ran into this creature noted its strength, the ability to strip bark from trees itself, to hop from one place to another with apparent ease, like tall places that normally it would involve a person either scrambling to get up and around, or at least deciding to go another way. Not with these creatures. And then also it is completely covered with hair, and it also has long dangling arms. But it doesn't really seem to run, let's say, on all fours, but instead is just like a human. It's man-like. It's 7 feet tall. Imagine like a powerful man around that size. And it has a very distinct white mane. It starts off from the very top, almost like a crown, and then it goes to the rest of its body. It gives me the idea that some parts of its body have a darker hue to it, but otherwise, predominantly, it has a whitish mane. And they seem to have intelligence too. The fact that they have these huts that they've built, these areas that again they traverse that no other human could easily do so, and they have these communications that they apparently do with some run-ins with people. More on that here in a minute. That shows that this isn't, like, say, just a primitive creature, but instead has evolved. This is something that apparently has its own form of intelligence and own form of communications. But yes, it eventually settled once it decided to run off, once this set of creatures run off from its original destination over to these other areas. That's where you can find them to this day. This is where you can go if you wanted to try to have some good luck and then see if you can run into these Tunijuk or these Traverspine gorillas. That's where you'll find it there. But interesting, when I was reading this information about it having some kind of link potentially to Native Americans and other type of Inuit legends, because it just goes to show that this kind of stuff is tied to cryptids in a very, very interesting way. Now, as far as the encounters with this creature, there's this. This was chronicled in a book that was called True North, A Journey into Unexplored Wilderness, by writer Elliot Merrick. He apparently went there to that place, Traverspine, and then he was able to talk with some of the locals there, and they told him about the experiences that they've had. Now, this doesn't mean that these experiences haven't been around for a much longer time period, but this is at least some of the earliest written experiences. One of them stood out. It was apparently in 1913, there in an area near Traverspine. That's where a family was living, and the family had a little girl. The little girl's name was Michelin. Well, she was by herself playing nearby some meadow when all of a sudden she saw what she described as a strange man-like creature come out from the wood-like area. She too stated that he was about 7 feet tall. He had that whitish mane, and then also he had those long dangling arms. But she said that this creature intelligently grinned at her. In other words, it wasn't just doing it nonchalantly, like it was acting in a friendly manner, and even told her or beckoned to her to come closer to him. And then that's, of course, when she just ran off screaming and went straight to the house. There was a search afterward to try to find out what this was. And that's when some of these hunters and others decided to comb the surrounding area. And when that happened, they stated that they found tracks that were about 12 inches long. They were very narrow at the heel, but the front had 2 broad, round-ended toes, and it gave the impression on the ground that the print was so deep in the ground that it must have been something weighing about 500 pounds. Again, it gives you an idea as to just how big and massive this creature is. But they didn't stop the hunt there. This continued for a little while afterward. Those hunters and then also some lumberjacks, they decided to join in. They set up bear traps thinking that this was going to be just a unintelligent creature that would just run into those traps and then bam, instant, hunt done. Like it would all of a sudden just be killed on the spot. But no, they quickly realized that this was a creature that knew where those traps were and intelligently steered them away from them altogether. And it was also driving their hunting dogs crazy. Apparently it was finding a way to avoid those hunting dogs, especially at night. It would sense and know where those dogs were, and the dogs knew where it was as well. But it was able to evade them, and it was also harassing them at certain parts of night, sometimes even throwing them apparently into the Traverspine River. And then there was a second encounter that occurred also near a home there in Traverspine, and as it turns out, one of the children within the home saw this creature peering through one of the windows. And so when they screamed, that's when the mother of the house grabbed the shotgun, went outside. She too saw a very tall creature running towards a clump of willows. And when it happened, it jumped into that specific spot. But before it did so, she was able to aim and then shoot, and then found, the shotgun the bullets themselves that found the creature, but it seemed to have little to no impact. She heard the distinctive sound of it being hit, but it was able to still run across and then disappear. And then once again, similar tracks were found around that location too, but nothing that shows like where it went to altogether. Eventually, it just disappeared. Now, further investigations, as I mentioned a minute ago, were to try to see if this was a bear. In fact, there was one conclusion stating that it was a what's called a barren ground grizzly, which you're looking at here, which has, as you can see, a more distinctive whitish color when it comes to its fur, or almost like a peach-like color. But no, anyone else that was looking at this stated that the tracks themselves have no match altogether with anything involving bears or grizzly. So that was ruled out by them. And then other indications is it could be, as I mentioned at the very beginning, a version of a Bigfoot or another ape-like creature, or maybe even something along the lines of a wild man, something involving a man or something else that was just growing out in that area untouched with no other form of human civilization nearby, and then it just evolved into something else altogether. But various sightings have been there, but I didn't read any that were more recent, but still, who knows, there may be a chance that this Traverspine Gorilla may still be around those locations up there in Canada. But if anybody has any more info, anything else I might have missed, then please post those comments below. What about those of you nearby those specific spots, the Happy Valley-Goose Bay, or those of you that are by the Tonga Mountains area? Please let me know. I would love to hear if you've gone there, maybe as just a tourist, or if you happen to live by and you know more local lore. That'd be some great information to share. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.